Welcome everyone. Today's class will be a flow class and it's targeting the hips. Let's begin on our backs. Come on down to your back. Have your feet about hips width apart and knees pointed straight up towards the ceiling. Allow the upper body to relax as you gently let the knees drop side to side. Try inhaling back to center and exhaling over to the side. So you're just moving with the rhythm of our breath. Good. Let's do that one more on each side. Just starting to warm up that low back, the hip joints. And come on back to the center. Walk your feet in a little closer towards the hips if they are far away. Have the knees pointed straight up towards the ceiling and press down into the feet to lift the hips off the mat. You want to start to feel a stretch to the front of the hips. Lift up high enough to feel that and then allow the hips to lower down onto the ground. Moving with the breath. Exhale to lift. Inhale to lower. Okay. Let's do one more of those. Next time, come back up into a bridge pose. Try to squeeze the knees a little closer towards one another in order to keep the thighs parallel to one another. Interlace the fingers under the hips and slide the arms in a little closer under the torso. And from here, just breathe, deep breaths. Strong legs. One more. Okay, release the hands and roll the spine all the way down onto the floor. Now walk your feet a little wider towards the edges of the mat so that the toes are touching the mat and the heels are on. So toes are touching the ground and the heels remain on the mat. Stretch your arms out a little wider and then exhale, let both knees drop towards one side. You want to try to start to feel the stretch to the front of the hips this way. And then inhale back to center and over to the other side. Inhale and exhale. Good. Finishing off here. Come back to the middle. Let's pause it here for a moment. Walk the feet in a little closer and hug the knees into the chest. Give that a little bit of a roll out. Other way. And also to warm up those hip joints, have your knees come in and draw them apart, toes together, big circles, come back together. So looking to warm up the hip joint that way. Okay. A little bigger, maybe the feet will draw apart and switch directions. Excellent. Come on back to the middle, knees into the chest, a little bit of a roll out, and let's make our way onto our hands and knees next. Come on down to your hands and knees. Just checking the alignment, big fingers, big hands, spread those fingers out wide, knees about hips width apart and toes pointed straight back. Okay. We're going to draw the belly in and take the right leg, stretch it back, and draw that right knee in towards the chest, maybe round the spine, tucking the knee in towards the nose, and then stretch it back. Keep going like this. Just warming up those big joints again. Knee in and press that heel back. Strong legs. Take that right leg and lower it down to the ground. Press that heel back. Press down into the hands. Really get that calf stretch. Come back to neutral. Take that right foot and cross it behind the left, across, all the way across. Keep the hips level in the same position as before and press the hips back. Press that heel back. You want to feel the stretch to the outside of that right hip. IT band, muscles, a little into the calf as well. Draw back to center, back to tabletop pose. Take the left leg, stretch it back, suck in the belly, strong leg, and the knee in, arch the back. Press that heel back, exhale, inhale. Keep going. Last one. Lower the left foot down onto the ground, curl the toes under, press that heel back, get the calf stretch, hamstring stretch, strong legs, press down into the hands, push back. Good, and let's come back to soften it for a moment. Cross that left foot behind the right, across. Try to keep the hips level, don't let it shift back, and really press the heel back to get that hip stretch. Feel the outside of the left hip that way. Good, okay, come on back to the center, back to a tabletop pose. Walk the hands forward, press the chest down towards the ground, keeping the hips up high. You can place the forearms on the ground, or you can keep those arms straight. But we're trying to open up to the front of the shoulders before we come into that first down dog. Toes can be curled under for a little bit more stability. And hold it here, a couple more deep breaths. Let's move back up into a tabletop position and get ready to come into that first downward facing dog. So good spread to the fingers, curl the toes under, lift the hips up and back, adjust as necessary. Let's rise up onto our tiptoes and bend both knees deeply. Press the belly towards the thighs. Press down into the fingers. Spread the shoulder blades and feel those insides of the elbows rotate towards one another. Straighten one leg by pressing that heel down towards the mat. You want to feel the stretch of the back of that straight leg. And then the switch. Exhale the switch. Switch. And again. Good. At the end of this exhale, send your gaze up in between the hands. Let's bring the feet to the top of the mat to come into a forward bend. Now, if you're still really tight in the back of the legs, keep the knees slightly bent. And let the upper body relax forward, soften into that stretch. If you're starting to feel a little warmer, start to engage the legs, press the hips up higher. Almost want to lift the kneecaps here. Really get strong stretch to the back of the legs that way. One more deep breath. Bend the knees and make your way up to standing. Take your time. Draw the shoulders away from the ears. And let's warm up a little bit more with sun salutations. Inhale, stretch the arms up and overhead. Exhale to fold, forward bend. Inhale, lift up halfway for flat back. Your hands can be in your shins and your thighs or on the ground. Exhale, let's place the hands on the mat. Step back into a high push-up position. First one, step it back. Okay. Stack those shoulders over the wrists. You can be on your toes or come down onto your knees, but we're taking low push-ups. Shift slightly forward, hug the elbows in close to the body, tricep push-ups, and then into a cobra. Let's just pause it here for a moment in Cobra. You can keep your elbows slightly bent as not to jam into this pose. Shoulders relax. Press the pelvic bone down. You want to really start to open up through the front of the body. Okay. Engage those legs a little. Press the backs or the shoelace part of your feet onto the ground. Good. One more deep breath. Lower all the way back down into the ground. Make your way back to downward facing dog. So you can either come back onto your knees or flip right back into down dog. Let's take a couple of deep breaths here first. Good. Send your gaze under the right arm. Shift your hips slightly over to the right. You want to feel the length through the left side of the body this way. If you can't quite feel it, continue to walk that left hand towards the top left corner of the mat. You can even step the left foot behind the right. And really lean into that right side. Inhale, take it back to the center, back to your regular down dog first, and take your gaze under the left arm, shifting your hips towards the left. Inch that right hand towards the top right corner of the mat. And then if you need more, step that right foot behind the left, leaning in towards the left side, opening up to the right side of the body. And let's come back to center, downward facing dog. At the end of this exhale, send your gaze up in between the hands. Step, walk, or hop your feet up to the top of the mat. Once you're there, inhale to lift up halfway. Exhale to fold. And inhale all the way back up. Taking a gentle back bend, the very top. And exhale, hands back to prayer position. Inhale, reach your arms up and overhead. Exhale, fold. Inhale, that half lift. Exhale, high to low push-up, step, walk, or hop back into your low push-up. Inhale into cobra. If you want up dog, press down into the feet to lift the hips off the mat. Thighs off the mat. One more. Next exhale, make your way back to downward facing dog. Good. Walk your feet in a little closer towards one another. And then press down into the left foot. Maybe the heel comes down onto the ground. If it doesn't, don't worry about it. Lift that right foot off the mat and really lean into that left leg. Spread those toes. Engage the legs. One more deep breath. Step the right foot forward up in between the hands for runner's lunge. Come into a twist. You can lower the back knee down if you like, but keep that left hand planted on the ground and rotate the chest towards the right side. Hands on the right hand on the thigh, or lift that right hand up towards the ceiling. Strong. Everything is engaged. 2. One more deep breath. And bring that right hand down onto the ground. Gently lower the back knee down. You can pat that left knee if you need to. A little support, a little cushioning. Next, we're going to exhale to draw back, straighten the right leg, peeling the right toes off the mat, and then shifting forward. If you find it hard to do it this way, you can always grab a couple of blocks to lift you up a little higher, and then you can shift back and then forth. As you shift forth, press those hips down and forward. As you draw back, try to keep the spine long. Peel the right toe off the mat. Good. And one more. Hold it in your runner's lunge. You can lift up a little higher, lift the blocks if you're using it, or place your hands on the front thigh. Let's hold it here for a good 5 breaths, just like this. Option to take it lower, hands down on the ground, okay? Keep pressing those hips down and forward. Stay right here or lift those arms up and overhead. Maybe interlace fingers, point the index fingers, and look for a little bit of a back bend. Careful, long spine, even as you let those hips sink down and forward. Inhale, come on back up. Exhale, release the hands down onto the ground. Shift back for that half split. And if you need a little bit more, you can always walk that back knee back. Okay, keep going a little bit more. Just like that. Still a half split, not a full split. Back toe can curl under for a little bit more support. And then for those of you who can lower your forearms down onto the block, it might be a little higher, you can do that. Okay, or just stay upright. Let's stay here again, 5 breaths. Good. Let's start to make our way back up. All the way back up. Walk your feet in a little closer. Find your way back to downward facing dog from here. Curl the toes under. Push back. Downward dog. Walk it off a little. Either remain in your down dog or shift forward and take your half sun salutation. It will be up to you whether you want to do this or not. And once back in down dog, walk the feet in a little closer towards one another. Press down into that right leg. Try to get that right heel a little closer down towards the floor and lift that left leg up high. Spread those toes, engage the legs. Step the left foot forward, right in between the hands for a runner's lunge with the back knee lifted off for now if possible, but if you want to bring it down, go for it. Right hand down, rotate the chest towards the left side, left hand on your thigh, or reach that left hand up towards the ceiling. Strong legs again, especially that back leg. Let's release both hands down onto the ground. Gently lower the back knee down, pointing the back toe. Blocks if you need them. Just press the hips down and forward. Exhale, shift back, lifting the toes up towards the ceiling or towards your forehead. Inhale, forward. Exhale, back. Keep going. We're coming back into that runner's lunge. Let those hips melt down. Lift the belly off the thigh. Keep pressing those hips down and forward. Make sure the front knee is somewhat over your front ankle. Three more deep breaths. Remember, staying here is fine, or if you want to deepen, lift those arms up and overhead. Interlace fingers, pointer index fingers. Keep letting those hips melt down and forward. Draw those arms back safely. Keep the spine long even as you take this back bend. Good, one more. Good. Inhale, back up. Exhale, release the hands down into the floor and shift back. For that hamstring stretch, try peeling the toes off the mat. And look for a little bit more by widening the legs. So again, you could stay right here, or you could try bringing those forearms down onto your blocks. Try to keep that leg strong though, that left leg. That knee really wants to bend here. 3 more deep breaths. Okay, let's walk the hands back to the front of the mat and find your way back to downward facing dog. Let's take it back, a downward dog. Give that a little bit of movement and a sun salutation, half sun salutation, low push-up, cobra, up dog, and then back, downward facing dog. Yeah. Spread those shoulder blades wide. 1 more deep breath in down dog. At the end of this exhale, gaze in between the hands, feet to the top of the mat. Step, walk, or hop. Put the feet up to the top of the mat. Once there, inhale to lift up halfway. Exhale to fold. And inhale, come all the way back up. Stretch your arms out and overhead. Take a gentle back bend. And come back to the start. Let's keep going. Inhale, let's reach those arms up and overhead. Exhale to fold, forward bend. Feet about hips width apart. You're going to sink into your chair pose, reaching those arms up and overhead, biceps by the ears, or just hands in prayer position. Moving. Exhale to fold. Come back up. Exhale. And back up. 3 more. And back up, coming into a forward bend. If your hands don't touch the ground comfortably, grab a hold of the block. But you're going to try to get stretched to the outside of the hip again by stepping the right foot behind the left, so crossing over. Coming into a forward bend, inhale, lift up halfway, exhale to fold. If you still can't quite feel this stretch, you may want to bend the front knee and really press into that right hip that way. Bend the front knee. One more deep breath. Soften and uncross those legs, switching sides. Okay, inhale to lift up, lengthen the spine, exhale to fold. And if you need more, bend the front knee. You're really pressing into that left hip. Deep breaths. One more. Okay, inhale to come back up and uncross those legs. We're going to take an inhale to lift up halfway. Exhale, hands on the mat. Step or hop back to your high to low push-up. Cobra up dog. And exhale back to downward facing dog. Let's step the feet a little closer towards one another. Take the right leg and lift it up high. Three-legged dog. Bend the right knee and try to stack the right hip over the left. Point that right knee towards the ceiling. One more. Open up into a warrior two with the right foot forward. Turn the back heel down and press open warrior two. So working to press the thighs away from one another, even as you keep the spine straight up and down. Okay. Stretch those arms out. Let's continue to warm up those hips. Inhale, straighten those arms up and overhead, and exhale, warrior two. Work on pressing those thighs open. Inhale, and exhale. Good. Last two. If you could inch that back foot back a little bit more to find a little bit more depth here, do so. We'll stay here one or two more deep breaths. Two more. One more. Keep that front knee bent to reverse your warrior, taking that front hand, reaching it up and back. Back hand lightly sliding down the back leg. Strong top arm. One more. Inhale to come back up, straighten the front leg and look for a triangle, and you might have to walk the feet in a little closer. So look for a triangle. You're welcome to use blocks if you need to, but the front leg is straight. So you want to keep both legs straight and spine long as well. And you have your right hand down towards the right knee, shin or ankle, and that left shoulder press open. Perhaps that left hand up towards the ceiling. Try to slow down that breath. Take one more deep breath here at least. And then inhale, let's lift all the way back up. Pivot the front toe forward so you have both toes pointed towards the same side. And then again, pivot those heels inwards so that you're now in goddess legs or temple legs. So hands on the thighs. You can gently sway the hips side to side, just a little bit of movement, just kind of loosening up those hips. You can press those thighs away from one another, maybe straightening the arms as you do so. Okay. Let those hips sink just a little bit more. See if you can do that. Good. So here's a couple of options for you. You can bring your hands down onto the ground or onto a block and let those hips sink deeply and you really feel that stretch. The thighs, the glutes, okay, the hips in the thighs, those adductor muscles. Some of you may be able to grab a hold of the ankles and have your forearms pressing against the shins or your calves and pressing it open and bringing the head close down towards the ground, and you might even be able to touch the ground with the head. Okay, so keep pressing. Couple more. Good, and then we'll soften that, bring those hands back out in front of you, straighten those legs, pivot those heels outwards, and come into your wide angle forward bend, just a regular one. Inhale to lengthen the spine and exhale. And if your head touches the ground here, actually walk the feet in a little so that you get that bigger stretch the back of the legs. Okay, and come on back up. I want you to be careful as you do this. You bend that front knee, the right knee, and come into a half squat. Okay, so be careful of the knee. You might have to stay with the hands on the ground and just enjoy the inner thigh stretch, okay? If it's okay to bend the right knee deeply, then point the left toe up towards the ceiling, and then look for a bow forward, maybe even bringing your forearms down onto the ground or onto a block. Careful to come back up and switch sides. Again, you just want to be mindful of the knee here. It looks really easy, but you could get hurt easily, okay? So just careful. Again, you might want to stay here and just feel that stretch, or bend the right knee and lift the left toe up towards the ceiling. Long spine, aiming to bring those forearms down onto the ground or on two blocks. Keep the toe pointed straight up towards the ceiling. Breathe. Good. Let's come back up. All the way back up. Wide angle forward bend. An inhale and an exhale. Let's come back up towards the top of the mat. Step it back into downward facing dog. Stay there in down dog, or flow high to low push-up, cobra up dog, and back to downward facing dog. Okay. Step the feet a little closer together and take your left leg, stretch it up high, three-legged dog. Bend the left knee and point that knee towards the ceiling. Then try to get the left hip higher than the right. Pressing down into those hands. Pressing the right heel down. Okay, level off those hips and step the left foot forward for your warrior two. I'm going to turn around so you can see me a little better. Okay, so we're working the front knee over the front ankle, pressing those thighs open. Try your best to keep the spine straight up and down, stretching those arms out. Here we go. Inhale, straighten the front leg, lift the arms up and overhead, and then exhale. Inhale. And exhale. 3 more. Come into your warrior two, and if you need a little bit more, walk the back foot back, sink a little deeper. Keep that front knee bent to reverse your warrior. Front hand reaching up and back. And an inhale to come back up. Look for your triangle. Again, you might have to bring the feet in a little closer for triangle. Use those blocks if you need it. Okay. Press that right shoulder open. Take that right hand up towards the ceiling. One more deep breath. Turn your gaze down. Inhale, lift all the way back up. Pivot both toes so that they are pointed in the same direction. Let's go again with that temple pose. Heels in, toes and knees are pointed in the same direction. Keep them safe. Keep those knees safe. Hands on your thighs. And then let those hips sink. And gently sway side to side. Let's keep warming up those hips. I think they're pretty warm, but doesn't hurt. Okay. Now, your thumbs are pointed back towards your back. Okay. You're gonna let those hips sink down a little. Let that right shoulder drop and press with that one hand, and you're gonna pull with the other. So you're pressing with the right hand as the right shoulder drops. Let those hips sink a little bit more, and then come back up and switch. Come on back up and bring the hands down into the ground, onto those blocks. Okay. Stay there or grab a hold of the ankles. use your forearms to press the shins away from you, or press in the arms into the shins, and let the hips drop and head drop down towards the ground as well. Good. Okay, let's soften this. Bring your hands down onto the ground as you straighten those legs and pivot those heels back out so that the outer edges of the feet are parallel to one another. Inhale, lengthen that spine. Exhale, it's full. Okay, come on back up. And this time we're moving into a gate pose. So very gently, you're going to lower the left knee down onto the mat. And you want to make sure that the foot and the knee is lined up. Okay? And you're going to come up so that your hips, this thigh is straight up and down. Not too open, not too close. Okay? You can point a toe back or keep it curled under. And that foot can point forward. Some people prefer to rotate it up, but you get less of a stretch, okay? So you want to try to feel that stretch the inside of that right thigh. Now, just make sure the hips are in line, and very lightly, you can even turn the right palm upwards so that you don't lean too heavily into that outstretched leg. And take it up and overhead, and this feels really good. Side stretch. We'll take an inhale to come back up and switch to the other side. Line up the foot and the knee. Try to keep those hips in line. And switch. Okay, inhale, let's come on back up and back into a wide angle forward bend. Just lift up. Okay, inhale to lengthen the spine and your wide angle forward bend. Maybe you want to grab a hold of your big toes or your ankles. Take an inhale to lift up slightly to lengthen the spine and then fold. Engaging those legs, pressing the hips up high. Let's come back up and walk back to the top of the mat. Find your way back to downward facing dog. Keep a little bit of movement here, pedal out the feet. Okay, and we're going to come into our single-legged pigeon pose in a moment. If you find this really hard on your If you find this really hard on your knees, come on down to the back and do the version that's reclined instead. And take the right leg up for a three-legged dog of any kind. And then step the right knee up behind the right wrist. So you have your foot slightly over to the left side. And let's just point the back toe or make sure it's straight. You might need to stick a block under the right hip to make sure that your hips are level. We'll look for a little length in the spine here first. Keep it upright, 3 deep breaths. Let those hips melt down a little, careful of the low back. 1 more. Okay. If you want a little bit more, you can always walk that front foot forward a little to bring the shins a little bit more parallel to one another, and then slowly make your way down into reclined pigeon. Do your best to keep those hips level, don't let them shift. Okay, and if you want a little bit more, only for those of you who are looking for more depth here, if it's enough, then stay as you are. If you want a little bit more, walk your way towards the left side of the mat. So looking for a side stretch away from the knee. And I find this to be a really good prep for Yogi Dandasana, you know, the foot into the armpit pose. For some of you might want to, maybe working into that. So this one's a good one because you really walk your way over and almost as though you're bringing your armpit towards, the foot towards the armpit, right? Come on, back up. Back to face forward. A little lift to the spine. And you can walk the foot in a little. Use blocks if you need to under the right hip for a little support as always. And lift the spine up. So lift a little taller. You can stay right here or lift that back foot off the mat and come into pigeon. Okay, with the back foot lifted off, and you can grab a hold of both feet, even flex the back foot, really push into the hands this way. Let those hips sink down and forward. Front of the hips, really feel this one. Now let's come back into our downward dog from here. Careful as you release the back foot. Curl the back toe under, shift the back foot forward if you need to. Find your way back to three-legged dog. Right leg lifts up and back. Stretch it out. Rotate the ankle, the hip, whatever you need to do. And then find your way back to down dog. You can sneak in that half sun salutation here if you're feeling a bit cool. Okay, downward dog. And then when you're ready, bring that left knee forward. Make sure that right leg is straight back. Support the left hip if you need to. Take this long spine here. Hold it here. 3 deep breaths. Okay. If you need more of a stretch, walk that left foot forward. Okay, make sure the hips are level here as you come down. And you just want to relax here for a moment. Deep breaths. You want a little bit more, walk the torso away from the knee. Side stretch. Okay, let's bring it back to the center if you were off to the side and start to make your way up. You might have to walk that front foot in a little closer towards the body, and a block under the left hip might help here, so not necessary. Again, just staying right here is fine. You do not have to do this next one. It's just for those who want a little bit more. For the front of the right hip, lift the right foot off the mat, reach around, grab a hold of it, and maybe the other hand can come around to look for the other ankle as well, foot or ankle. Try flexing that right foot and push strongly into it. Let the hips sink down and forward. Get a great shoulder stretch here too. Keep breathing. All right, and let's release that. Soften. Find your way back to downward facing dog from here. Curl that back toe under, move it slightly in and back to three-legged dog. Left leg lifts up and back. A little bit of movement. Sun salutation if you need it. Half sun salutation, low push-up, up dog and downward facing dog. A little bit of movement. Now let's come into frog pose. Frog pose. Okay, so with frog pose, we're going to bring those knees down onto the ground and have those knees a little wider. You might need blankets or some cushioning under those knees. And have your toes pointed outwards. So looking for that inner thigh stretch here. Let those knees draw away from one another. And you may have to stay here on your hands. Some people will stay right here and work Okay, work it here. If you need a little bit more, you can try bringing your forearms down onto the ground. You can even rest your forehead on your hands. You can stack your fists. Okay, but to deepen the stretch, you want to try very gently, carefully press the hips back towards the heels. That should turn on the stretch quite a bit. Notice how my heels are lined up with the knees. Toes pointed out. Okay, so try not to let them be too out of alignment here. Okay. Those deep breaths really do help. Let's try to stay here. Three more deep breaths. Okay, to come out of this pose, let's shift the hips forward away from those heels, bring the toes in together and draw the hips back towards the heels as though you're coming into a very wide, neat child's pose. And then relax the torso. Start to make your way back up. Inch those knees back close towards one another, and then hips over to one side. Come into seated. Feet flat on the ground. Let those knees drop side to side in a gentle windshield wiper movement. And we're going to try to get those hips a little bit more and try to get to the IT bend in the outside of those hips, okay? So we just did the inside. So let's bring that right knee over the left. And if it's hard to keep that bottom knee bent like that, just straighten it out instead. Try to squeeze those thighs in closer to one another. And in an ideal world, you would line those knees up and have the feet in that straight line as well. Or make sure they're even. And if you need a little bit more, keep walking the feet forward. Okay. Lift the spine. Stay here or lean forward to turn the stretch on. And if you still can't quite feel that, walk the feet forward. Okay, let's come on back up and cross those legs, a little bit of movement, and when you're ready, other side with that left knee on top of the right. Okay, you're going to make sure that as even as possible, line up those knees, upright or forward. Good, let's come on back up to seated and cross those legs, and we're going to make our way down onto our backs. So let's grab those sips of water and we're coming down into the back. Knees into the chest, give that a good roll out. Maybe even windshield wipers here on the back if you need it. We're coming into a twist that's a play off of figure four stretch or pigeon on the back. But if you want to do a regular twist at this point, that's fine too. This is just a little extra here. Okay, so we're on the back. Bump your hips slightly over to the right side of the mat, so a couple of inches over, and then cross that right ankle on top of the left as though you're coming into reclined pigeon. a reclined figure 4 stretch. And then very carefully, you're going to let both feet drop towards the left side. Okay? And then you can use your left hand to grab a hold of the right leg at the ankle or the shin. But what you're going to do here is now to press that right knee away from the body without using your hands, so avoid that. And you're trying to get both shoulders on the ground, both shoulders glued. So this should feel really nice all along that right hip. Let's take a couple more deep breaths. Okay, when you're ready, come on back up to the middle and bump your hips towards the left side of the mat. And we'll repeat the same thing. This time the left ankle is over the right. The feet drop towards the right side. Grab a hold of whatever's available to you with the right hand, and then press that left knee away from the body. Okay, one more deep breath here. Let's find our way back to the center, hips back to the middle and crossing those legs. Any final movements that you need to take here, please feel free to take them. Any other poses that you feel is missing, please feel free to do that as well. And if you're leaving us here now, thank you very much for joining me. If you're coming into Shavasana, let's just come on down to the back and stretch those legs out, or any other position that's comfortable for you for your Shavasana. Take up room, take up space. Scan the body to make sure you're not holding on to any tension, especially the facial features, soften jaw, cheeks, and forehead. And feel those limbs just grow heavy and sink deep. And with a calm, relaxed body and calm, relaxed mind, enjoy your Shavasana. very peacefully and calmly. Let's make our way back onto the mat. Just start to awaken the body here a little. So movements, just bring sensations back to the body. If you like to take a big stretch, just a reach of the arms overhead. Big inhale to stretch from toes to fingertips. And exhale to release. You'll hug your knees into the chest for a roll out perhaps. And then carefully make your way back up. I'd like to thank you very much for joining me today. I hope that helped. Thank you so much and namaste.